The meeting of the Dudley-Charlton Regional School Committee is now in session for the sole purpose of interviewing superintendent finalists. It's now in session. It is Tuesday, February 26th. We're at the Shepherd Hill Library in Dudley, Massachusetts. And the Dudley-Charlton Regional School Committee convenes this evening to interview two candidates in open session for 1 hour. The schedule for the public interview will be the following, and that is 5 to 6, Jennifer Haggerty, Superintendent of Irving School Union number 28, and 6:30 to 7:30, Dr. Julia Carlson, Assistant Superintendent of Fall River Public Schools. Good evening. On behalf of the school committee, I would like to welcome you and congratulate you on being selected as the finalist for superintendent of the Dudley-Charlton Regional School System. Before we begin, I'd like to go over our format for this evening for the next hour. Committee members will be asking you a series of questions, with every member asking at least one question. We ask that you keep your responses brief, except where a question has multiple parts, as we hope to ask somewhere between 12 and 15 questions within the appointed time frame. If time permits, at the end of our questions, you will be able to provide some closing remarks for us. Members, before asking your questions, please introduce yourself, and we will start from going around the table on the right-hand side.
Hi, Superintendent Haggerty.
Hello.
Eileen Rabbit, school committee member from Charlton. So I have a multi-part question for you, and feel free to ask me to repeat it.
Okay, I will if I need to. Thank you.
The educator evaluation process has been in place for several years now. Can you speak to how you utilize this system to develop your educators and administrative team to improve their craft? Can you provide examples of using this process to help a staff member grow their skill set, using the process to address an underperforming staff member, and using the process so that the functions within the process, such as observation, is seen as a positive? And then finally, how have you set your own yearly goals to address both the needs of your supervisors and your desire for personal and professional growth? What type of support and feedback do you find beneficial?
Okay. When you said multi-part, you meant
I
it.
did.
Yes.
I'm an overachiever.
So I think it was really a wonderful development on the part of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education when they created the Educator Evaluation tool. I was one of the trainers in my district when I was principal, when we were beginning to implement Educator Evaluation. I really had to dig into all of the modules and get to know it and be familiar with it. And in implementing it from the principal's side, it was a way to bring cohesion across grade levels and within the school, as well as to be able to reflect the professional development needs of each individual teacher. As a principal, my goals were tied closely to what our school goals were, and also connected to our district vision and mission. As a superintendent, I see it working much the same process. For me, it's very important that there's a through line from the professional staff at the schools who are developing their goals through the leadership at the building level, principals, through central office leaders, and finally through the superintendent. They for me, should not be disparate goals, but there needs to be cohesion and reflection of our strategic plan while taking into consideration the needs, as I referred to before, of each of our individual schools and individual teachers. I have used Educator Evaluation and the rubric and goal setting to help teachers, whether they were new teachers on one-year plans, or also when staff were working with me and the principals around a directed growth plan. So where do we see your needs, and what goals do we need to set? what I think is so key in this whole process is that it's not something an administrator is doing to a teacher, doing to a professional staff member. We together are mapping out a plan for you as an educator, for your classroom, for our school as a whole, and for our district. And so it feels like there are two people in the driver's seat. We're working together. We're partners in improving your learning and improving our students' learning, which is the ultimate goal. And as a superintendent, I think it was important for the school committees and I to sit down and map out what goals are connected to our superintendency union, what goals are connected to the particular schools I would be superintendent of, which are independent districts, and then where do I see my professional growth fitting into that. And what always is key is what is our district vision? What are we looking for? And where do my goals fit in to that? And how do they connect with the administrative team and staff?
Thank you.
Did I hit all the pieces?
I think you did.
Okay.
Hi, how are you? I'm
Hi.
Stephanie Reed. I'm also part of the school committee from Charlton. My question is, as a leader of the district, how would you obtain the buy-in of staff and administration for change or new ideas to bring us from good to great?
Yes. So I've had lots of conversation about that today, and it's something I reflect on as a leader. And I think it's important to think about the why of the change, that it's not just change for change's sake. Why are we needing to make the change? Either what data drives us, what do we know, how does it connect to our goals, and how is this change going to improve student learning and teacher performance and administrator performance? And in turn, how does that then all lead to, again, the goal, the vision, the strategic plan that is guiding us as a district. And I once was told, they're very wise words, go slow to go fast. It's important, I think, to have a sense of urgency to realize why change needs to be made and what change needs to be made. But if it's coming from only one person or one place, it's not going to be lasting change. And so getting feedback and listening and hearing and explaining and spending that time when the change is about to occur or when there is imminent change or change is down the road, continuing to have that conversation with staff is how, and other constituency groups and stakeholders, that's how we get buy-in. When everybody on the team sees the goal, the end goal.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Kathy Carmignani. We've met before.
Yes, we have.
Can you explain to us how you use data when making decisions, whether it be planning budgets or just planning curriculum and so forth?
Yes. As we all know, both in schools and in life, we're driven by many amounts of data. And I think data points are not the only way to make decisions, but they are certainly key. When we are making decisions, staff feedback, parent feedback, observational feedback, help us balance the data that is in front of us, because we can interpret data many different ways. And so gathering many perspectives, and data is one important piece, is how it's helpful to make decisions. So, for example, if we're looking at mathematic performance in the elementary schools and we're seeing data reflected from MCAS that's showing us we're missing out on algebraic thinking, then having conversations at the school level about, so what do you see, what do you notice, this is what the data's telling us, where do we see maybe where we're not reaching all of our students or we're missing a certain piece of curriculum. I think that's where data is key in helping us in fostering those conversations so that we can make decisions based on providing the best education for our students.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pauline O'Coin. How do you
Hi.
do? How important to your community, how important to you are community ideas and parent community input into the district decision-making? How will you facilitate the flow of information from the district parents and community? How will you facilitate the flow of ideas and critical feedback from parents and other citizens back to the district?
So parents and their students are our consumers. And so just as in the business world, it's important to gather feedback, opinions, perspectives from your consumers. It's important in education for us to remember that those are our consumers and we need to hear perspectives. In the past, I facilitated coffee hours, forums, opportunities for drop-ins to gather feedback in some informal ways. In both my principalship and my superintendency, I used an entry plan to guide my work the first 100 days, and much of that is gathering feedback, whether it's observational feedback or looking at data or looking at job descriptions, doing job audits. And, I have to say, it was key in my current superintendency, the entry plan, and it was sitting down one-on-one or in small groups and gathering feedback and hearing strengths and growing edges and traditions and things that people hold dear and hold sacred.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
So our district is a multi-million-dollar operation.
Yes.
Some would say it should be run like a business. How would you respond to that?
So I would say that as a leader of a school district, you have two equally important responsibilities. One is to provide the best possible education for all of your students, and to balance that with fiscal responsibility to the towns or cities that are funding what you do for your students. So yes, we need to be fiscally responsible, and yes, there are business aspects to what we do at the leadership level in school districts. But I also think that the most important thing, or one of the most important things we do, is developing relationships, because without that, all of the other hard work, whether it's curricular or fiscal, is not going to be cohesive for the school district if the leaders within the school district have not worked to develop relationships with parents, with community members, with staff and students. Then we're missing a big piece of what we're in education for. And in that same line, for me, it's very important as the leader of a school district to make sure that I'm not going to a town once or twice a year and saying, here's what we need budget-wise, but that we're developing those relationships and having conversations, because the towns have needs as well as the schools supported by the towns. So yes, run it like a business, but run it like a business with heart. You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Catherine Caballa from Dudley.
Hi.
Control is an important element in managing a school district. How do you manage to be in control without being controlling?
So I think it is key to go back to what I just said in the previous question. It's so dependent on relationships and connecting with people and distributing leadership where it can and needs to be, but also realizing that at the end of the day, there is a district decision maker. Just like in a school, there's a school-based decision maker. Someone sometimes has to make those hard choices or not easy choices, but it is important that you are not a leader in a silo by yourself, that as a leader, you have developed those relationships and those partnerships with the people that you work with and work for.
Hi, how are you?
Hi,
Jamie
good, how are
Terry.
you?
Thank you, from Charlton. Given the diversity in the town's financial situations in the 4 towns covered under Union 28, can you please discuss ways in which you ensure equity across the union to assure all schools and students are offered the same level of education? And can you please provide specific examples?
Sure. So for any of you who are familiar with where I currently am or I've had conversations with, in Union 28, we are a superintendency union, and so we develop individual budgets because each school is also its own district, and we have one small region. And so there are diverse needs from town to town, even though the towns might be neighboring. And it's work to sit down, but we do it with principals, teachers. What are your needs? Listening to the towns, give us parameters. We have conversations, sit down with select board and finance committee members. Over the course of the development of the budget, we gather feedback even prior to the public hearing on the budget. The principals are key in giving us feedback from the school level at central office. What are needs? What are wants? Where do we find that we need to put our financial resources? And I think also being visible in the schools, I try to make an effort to be there frequently so that I can see where those dollar figures that are on a page actually go and what they're doing. Because as we say at central office, the business manager, it's not just, those aren't just budget numbers. Those have a child's face, all our children's face attached to it, our students. And so we have to be cognizant of those children and how they're represented within the budget. And, having discussions, starting the budget process early so we understand the needs across all of our schools in the superintendency union. And I would imagine those same conversations occur in a region, and they occur in a district when there's multi-schools. Of course, every principal wants to advocate for their school, but also we want to advocate, they're all our children, and sometimes resources may need to go in one spot one year and may need to go more resources in another spot. I think it's, again, just balancing the needs that are put in front of you and making the best decision.
So, following up on Mrs. Terry's question.
Yes.
In the uniqueness of Union 28, I'm interested in having you speak to how you entered your superintendency in the union and found a pathway of respecting each district's individual culture, yet you worked on creating a vision of all those four parties to create the one vision of what the overall arching district does. So I'm interested in how you took the pieces and created a picture.
So the first piece was listening. So when I came in, and my entry plan was just a roadmap that would guide me, but listening to school committee members' perspective, parent perspective, teacher perspective, union perspective, central office perspective, administrative perspective, all of those multi-perspectives help to create a reality, a unified perspective. And it was important work to sit, to listen, to gather information. And again, presence in the schools and connecting with each individual school to know them not as part of Union 28 only, but as individual schools, and knowing what the needs were, what the traditions were, what people held dear, and then working very closely with my administrative team, who is really high functioning. I have a fantastic administrative team, and we spent a lot of time mapping out, so where are all our initiatives individually, and how do we see those fitting together across the district, across the superintendency union? And yes, there were many differences, but there were more commonalities that we found. And so using those commonalities helped us to create a strategic plan and helped us begin to think about ways that we could look at each school individually, yet create some pieces that connect us. So we have a unified identity in some ways. So as a former kindergarten teacher, I like to liken it to, I might have had 25 individual 5-year-olds sitting in front of me, and everyone had unique and different needs, but there were many commonalities and similarities, and we had to find cohesion as a class.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know you've already said that you want to make sure that you're visible in the schools and have a presence there. My question is, our superintendents have always made sure to be known to the students by being present within the schools and at activities. I was wondering if you had a plan for how to be connected to our students.
Yes, well, some of your students posed a very similar question today. presence in the school and presence at school activities. Understanding, of course, you can't be at everything all the time, but again, what are the important things at school? What does the school hold meaningful? And making sure my presence is seen both during school and after school, whether it's a concert or a football game or a basketball game, eating lunch in a cafeteria, and just having casual conversations. And I know in speaking today that the district has, I think it's called an advisory council, but it has some students that meet with the superintendent and give feedback.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, I was already asked, do you like football? Would you go to a football game? What do you think about concerts and chorus? So yes.
They like their course. Okay, so what research have you done with our district data, if any, and have you noticed any trends that you would want to further investigate if you became superintendent?
So I've done, as I'm sure all the candidates have, some background research in looking on the department's website, in reading about the district, about the towns. What I would want to do as part of my entry plan is to dig deeper and use both the interviews and the research relative to curriculum, instruction, test data, other kinds of data, and then begin those conversations about where we need to grow and things that we're really doing well. I think it's important to take that time at the beginning to really dig in and understand not just the data as it is on paper or on a website, but how that data connects to the people who are doing the work every day.
We think we have excellent candidates. How can you convince us that you're the person for this position?
How can I do that? I think I bring a unique skill set in coming from a superintendency union and managing 5 budgets and 5 very distinct towns. I think my background as a building principal is also helpful in giving me another perspective from the superintendent's office. I've been there. I understand what it's like to be a building principal. And I think 20 years in a classroom gives me a strong perspective on when I ask someone to do something, when we have an initiative, I can reflect on what it looks like in the classroom. So I think my teaching background, my principalship, and the superintendency experience I've had within a superintendency union make me a strong candidate. I think I'm a good listener. I think I am a person who strives to build relationships and make connections, and I think that is key in my role, whether it's in Union 28, Dudley-Charlton, or some other school district, if ever. So I think I bring a lot of strengths to the position.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
To go along with that,
Mm-hmm.
give us some experiences that you have had as an administrator and outcomes that came from them, and explain how they would help us see your potential as a successful superintendent.
So to connect with what Elaine said earlier about the cohesion in Union 28, I think during my tenure we've developed a stronger union identity. We have an initiative that we've worked for 3 years on in bringing universal design for learning to our school to provide access for all and to remove barriers. And I think that our work in taking the time to research and begin to develop it at the leadership level, and then realize in order to bring it to scale, we need involvement with staff at the development level. I think that shows that I am willing to research and find an initiative that works for the district, but I'm also willing to, in early stages, bring on key stakeholders from the classroom level to work alongside. Thank you. You're welcome.
How do you keep the school committee informed? in particular, what is your strategy about issues that are your responsibility, but the school committee would have a great interest in?
So I have 5 school committees, and I work very hard to try and make sure that they are informed as soon as possible within the parameters. If, of course, there's something I'm not at liberty to share in a public session, or I can't share all of the details, I do try to make sure that the school committee is informed. Oftentimes, they are the conduit between the townspeople and the superintendent's office or the district. And so keeping them informed is key, whether it's conversations or superintendent's reports or emails, depending on the topic or the subject. But again, I see us as a partnership and working together. And so when you're working together, it's important to be collaborative and have conversations and keep each other informed. So I do try my best to make sure that I do that.
Thank you.
And I did try to have a Twitter page, but I had like 4 followers, so it wasn't that successful.
It's okay with me.
How confident are you in your ability to take the next step career-wise, increasing your student and staff population by such a large percentage? And I'll just follow that up with, when we were on site, there were so many people that spoke so highly of your interest and ability to be on site in the schools every single day and week, which is wonderful, but we have a larger district and more classrooms that you'd be trying to get into, so that's where I'm getting at.
Yeah, and I understand that's a fair question. I think I'm capable of rising to the challenge, and I am certainly cognizant that what I would do here or in another job would not be exactly like it is in Union 28. Just like when I left the principalship and I was told, oh, you're going to miss being with the kids every day, you're going to miss the interactions you have with students every day. And it's not that I don't, but I also like the challenge of what I do at the superintendent's level. I still would want to make it a priority to make sure I'm visible. It just might look different because the district is different.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have any closing remarks that you would like to give to us?
I'd like to share with you first off that I was more than delighted to sit down today and hear in different ways the way that Dudley-Charlton is spoken about, whether it's students or staff or parents, that it's a district that has a small school feel, even though it's a regional school district, that people feel that they are connected and well-known. I enjoyed hearing from the students that they see the superintendent in the hallways, that they are interacting with the superintendent. What I heard time after time after time, whether it was in the same words or not, is tradition, interest in growth, and a small community feel. And it's impressive. And it's the reason I wanted to come back here and be sitting here tonight. After my interview the first time, I got that feeling right away. And it was reflected time after time after time today in my conversations. And then visiting the schools, it was very easy to see why there is such a sense of pride and ownership in the Dudley-Charlton regional schools. Now, I didn't make it to every school, but I could probably guess that what I saw in Dudley occurs in Charlton in that same way. People spoke just very highly of the school district. And I think I've always been a person who looks for challenge in a good way, not just for change's sake or to do something, but when it feels right, and it feels right that I applied and I'm here, and I would welcome the chance to work for the Dudley-Charlton Regional School District.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, on behalf of the Dudley-Charlton Regional School District, I would like to thank you for your interest in this position. The committee is still on schedule to deliberate and select the Dudley-Charlton superintendent on the evening of February 27th. That's tomorrow evening.
Even with snow, you
Well,
all have
we
been
might not,
right on
so-
track.
Should you have any questions between now and tomorrow, please feel free to contact the interim superintendent's office, and they'll direct you your question to the appropriate individual. But do watch our website, because we might be deciding tonight if we have to postpone because of the inclement weather. It'll
Okay.
probably be Thursday if we all can make it, but I'll watch the website so you'll know.
I will watch the website. I probably will be watching it closer than most, I'm sure. But I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you at the first interview and for welcoming me back a second time and having further conversations. Thank you.
Thank you.